Running a Minecraft server is a living nightmare. I'm sure you all know about how servers such as 2b2t are constantly exploited, with players gaining the ability to do things they definitely shouldn't be allowed to. But do you really know what it's like? Have you been behind the server? You see, I can offer a unique insight into the behind the scenes of running the constant fire that is a Minecraft server. I can tell you about every single annoying player who makes their sole duty whenever online to find any and every single little exploit or feature we accidentally looked over possible. I can tell you about the numerous dupe exploits, players obtaining illegal and game-breaking blocks and items, utilizing unintended features of plugins to literally destroy spawn, building end portals at spawn, using external mods to find any player's location at any time, and even as far as potentially logging into my own Minecraft account through an exploit, and gaining dangerous levels of access. Some of this stuff all happens behind the scenes, and you'll never know it happened. Today I'm going to share all these headaches with you, as I tell you about the most dangerous bugs and exploits my server has ever faced. The first major exploit or bug we faced happened over a year ago now. On my server's SMP, we allow raiding and griefing, and don't have claims or base protection. This means many players' bases are built tens of thousands of blocks out where they can't be found, or underground for even more security. Base coordinates are not something that should be just given out to anyone, as if leaked, likely result in a base being griefed in the next 2 to 3 business days. On the server, we also have a reputation plugin where you can give a reputation point to a player if they helped you or did something good, or down rep and remove a reputation point if they did something bad like kill or grief you. If you reach -15 reputation, your coordinates are displayed on the tab menu for all to see. Well, on one unfortunate day, the rep database completely broke, setting everybody's reputation to -2.1 billion, or the 32-bit integer limit. Pandemonium immediately ensued as a dozen or so players' bases were instantly leaked, and other players tried to warn everybody not to join the server. This resulted in basically everybody logging off in a panic and having us quickly fix the issue, which is why it's not well documented, because everybody was too afraid to log on. Luckily, this issue was easily found and fixed, and since it happened right after the server's daily restart, not as many players were online. I can't say the same about our next array of issues and exploits though. A few months later, we had our first illegal item exploit. At spawn, we have a cosmetics villager, where you can right-click to access a GUI and equip certain particle effects, elytra trails, death effects, arrow effects, and more. The GUI is made up of a few items: grey stained glass, a nether star, an arrow, a skull, and a barrier block, used to unequip all cosmetics. None of these items are meant to be picked up or moved into your inventory, as they are used to access an array of other menus and options. By the way, you guys should gotcha! Bet you thought I was going to ask you to subscribe. You def should, by the way. But no, instead, why don't you just check out my Minecraft server, og-network.net, and who knows, you could be featured in a video in the future. Anyways, some players somehow figured out that using the slight delay which occurs when right-clicking the villager to open the GUI and then spamming shift-click would rarely glitch it, allowing you to take the items out of the GUI and into your inventory. This was bad. While the arrow, skull, and glass panes were whatever, the nether star was a rare item, which if could be glitched into existence anytime a player wanted, would majorly disrupt the player-run economy. But even worse was the barrier block. I mean, do I even need to explain how devastating this could be? Players could actually place the barrier block as well. In fact, here's one player placing it on the server, probably, and hopefully, the only screenshot in existence of such a feat. And unfortunately for us, things just kept getting worse. While the players who discovered the bug and reported it to us were cooperative, unfortunately, them holding barrier blocks at spawn got a lot of other players' attention. One of them also apparently dropped the barrier by accident at spawn. Word spread around the server like wildfire, and suddenly a lot of players flocked to spawn to attempt the exploit themselves. And slowly but surely they figured it out, one by one, and would spread the exploit around by telling their friends. Now the situation was really bad, because we couldn't just disable the cosmetics villager and patch the issue. Barrier blocks were now circulating around the server, and it wouldn't be long until the wrong players got their hands on them. Luckily, we figured out a solution and enabled a plugin which blacklisted the barrier block, so if it was found in any player's inventory or was placed in the world, would be removed. And the og-smp went on to live another day. Okay, let's fast forward a few months to talk about our next exploit discovered by players. In fact, this exploit is fresh, only happening a few days ago as of writing. A big draw of our SMP is the player-run marketplace, where players can rent small little stalls for money and then set up shops in them, so they can buy and sell items from other players. Once you have rented a stall, you can place blocks within it, but can only change the blocks which actually make up the stall with a special little donor perk called stall customization. Stall customization allows you to replace certain blocks which make up a stall with a large selection of other blocks, but you can't mine or pick up the blocks. They are meant to be purely cosmetic. That being said, some players figured out that if they placed a block in their stall, went and did a random stall customization, let's say changed dark oak logs to normal oak instead, mined the block and then reset their stall customization, the block you mined would just magically reappear again, effectively duping it. This worked because resetting the stall customization reverted the stall back to the same save state prior to customizing it initially, which in this case would have been when the stall had dark oak logs and a netherite block in it. Upon figuring it out, they proceeded to dupe 3 stacks of netherite blocks. Great. Luckily, they decided to boast about it in our server's Discord and DM some other people about it, as well as filling their stall with netherite blocks. So we caught them and disabled stall customization for the time being. But you know what's even funnier? While our admin, It's Flip, was replicating the original stall customization dupe exploit, he actually found another, easier to replicate and significantly more dangerous exploit. You could place whatever block you wanted, such as sand, in your stall, and then, well, change it to whatever you wanted and could actually mine the blocks. The fact that no player abused this method before the other convoluted method is kind of hilarious to me. Both exploits were promptly fixed. However, in the meantime, some players did unintentionally use this second exploit, not to dupe, but to accomplish some interesting feats. Fortunately for us, not realizing its game-breaking power. You see, because the blocks can't be mined, or well, weren't meant to be, we gave players the option to use illegal blocks like command blocks and end portal frames in their stall design. Some players figured out that using this, they could set the floor to obsidian and build a nether portal. Others took it further and meticulously replaced chests in their stall to form an end portal. And of course, it could be lit and used. This was fixed as well, but I have a feeling that this isn't the last we hear about some obscure stall customization exploit. Some players really have just nothing better to do than break the server. The same players who discovered the netherite dupe stall exploit also gave us quite the scare a few weeks back. On the SMP, we have an events plugin. Basically, every 30 minutes, a random minigame is chosen, such as Spleef, TNT Run, Skywars, and more, which players can click to join. The winner of these short and small minigames gets some money as a reward, and overall, it's a lot of fun and the players like it a lot. We also gave permission to our top donator rank to choose and start an event every 30 minutes. One of the most popular minigames at the time was Skywars, with lots of players starting it and requesting that the donators start it as well. Now, we've had some issues with minigames in the past, as while in them, you aren't allowed to use any commands such as /home or /spawn. You have to basically finish the event, but they have been mostly minor, such as players not being able to leave the event or it never ending. Nothing really game breaking. However, unlike all other minigames, Skywars actually allows players to place and destroy blocks. The same players who figured out the stall dupe discovered that they could get the blocks to build and light a nether portal in Skywars if they worked together, basically allowing them to leave the area of the event and go to the normal overworld nether. From there, they could head to the nether spawn and go through a portal, thus teleporting them back to the overworld where they could then head to spawn while the server still thought they were in the event. Now, the spawn and marketplace are the only two areas of the entire SMP which are protected and don't allow PvP, apart from the warzone. Now, because Skywars allows players to break blocks when in that minigame, they are given special permissions when in minigame mode. And since the server thought the players were still in the event even though they are at spawn, they could effectively break and place blocks anywhere. As you can imagine, players having the ability to break blocks at spawn is never going to be good. By the time I was alerted and logged on, they had trapped a bunch of players at spawn by digging down the very block you spawned on, as well as destroying some players' chests in market stalls. Luckily, the bug abusers were long-time players and decided to tell us instead before really doing significant damage, but the potential to completely destroy spawn had never been higher, and if left unchecked for even 15 or 20 more minutes, could have been absolutely devastating. If this ability had fallen into the wrong player's hands, who knows what could have happened. Earlier this year, when we first added Bedrock support to our server using Geyser, we faced a wide array of issues. Because Geyser translates Bedrock player packets into Java player packets, a lot of plugins end up having issues with it. For example, normally on the server when you enter combat, you can't go back into the protected spawn area as you are instead flung away. Bedrock players could somehow bypass this and just casually stroll back into spawn. Anyways, not long after Bedrock compatibility was enabled, some players discovered the most powerful dupe exploit our server has ever faced. Normally, if a player enters combat and then disconnects, an NPC of them is spawned which can be killed and will drop their items, thus preventing players from combat logging. However, if a Bedrock player entered combat and was killed in the NPC state, they would drop their items on the ground and upon re-logging would still have the items in their inventory, effectively duping them. An extremely powerful duplication exploit. This time, however, we weren't alerted of the exploit that quickly, as it was only known by a handful of newer Bedrock players, of which weren't really well known on the server. We only found out when coincidentally, a mod TP'd to a player's base upon getting reports of them flagging the anti-cheat and seeing their dupe stash. These Bedrock players, who likely duped the items on their phones, had shulkers upon shulkers of netherite blocks, god apples, max netherite armor, max tools, as well as innumerable amounts of other rare items like wither skulls and nether stars. Some of these items had been distributed or sold at the market as well, which, as I mentioned earlier, is devastating to an economy-based server. It was a stressful few days of cleanup and tracking players down, of which likely a few got away, but for the most part we managed to clean up everything, get rid of the duped items, and permanently ban the offenders. I couldn't thank our mods enough, by the way, they were super helpful. And thus, the saga of the Bedrock dupe, the worst dupe exploit our server has ever faced to date, concluded. And that's that. I'm sure it won't be the end of it though. I tell you, these players are great, but my god, do they look for any minuscule crack and find a way to exploit it. There's a few other stories I still have to share, some of which I actually can't yet, as it would make our server vulnerable or sensitive right now, so look out for a second part in the future. I hope you enjoyed the video, be sure to check out the server and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching.